Welcome to Black Army Radio, people. Another day of awesomeness after weeks and weeks of awesomeness. For everything, for the war, for gas prices, for the market, for housing interest rates, for people dying and us talking shit about them. I mean, how you doing, Joel? How are we doing today?
Oh, doing good. Getting ready to do my taxes, hemorrhaging money. April's always a rough fucking month for me. I just hemorrhage money in April, so um, yeah, and
Dude,
it doesn't help with gas prices and to go to the store and buy 2 days worth of food, you spend 120 fucking dollars. It's crazy.
I'm telling you, what do you think would happen if there was just, I don't know, like what would the number have to be? 10,000, 50,000 people were just like, "Yeah, we're not paying taxes this year. You guys don't do anything with our money that fucking benefits us. Our infrastructure is crumbling. You're giving all of our shit away to everybody," right? It's like, based on their enforcement capability. Now, the IRS, they have their own enforcement people. A lot of people don't know that
Right,
and a lot of it is through the ATF and like
right.
alcohol, tobacco, firearms, and explosives. They do a lot of the enforcement. IRS has their own investigative, weaponized military. You know what's funny? I did not realize how many federal agencies carry guns out there, like have special agents.
Right.
And when I went down to FLETC in Glencoe, Georgia, and I don't have a hard number, but I remember the number being something around like 70 to 90 different agencies, something crazy, like that had law enforcement will kill you, we can exterminate your life capabilities. And I remember the most surprising one was the Postal Service. And the Postal Service actually has a very highly, I don't want to say trained, but like funded law enforcement investigative wing, the US Postal Service. And they actually pay like really, really, really good money. A lot of guys want to go into that outfit just because of that. But dude, it's like the we talk about like the over policing of America and Americans.
Right.
I had no idea how many federal aid because when you grow up, you think like, okay, there's the FBI, there's your sheriff's department that's showing up to your freaking, weekend bonfires in high school, right? You have the
Right.
PD. Like I said, as far as like the locals go, you have the PD and and the SO, and then you're like, oh, there's the FBI, there's the CIA. Everybody knows about the CIA and the FBI. Maybe the DEA a little bit, right? DEA pretty
Right.
prominent, especially during the whole war on drugs bullshit thing since the 80s. And other than that, people are kind of like, how many people know about, that like the National Park Service has a really, really extensive SWAT special
Right.
operations teams. Like
And like
the Forest Service has one of the premier search and rescue law enforcement agencies that there is.
And the Forest Service law enforcement, don't they have, like, more jurisdiction than any other person as far as, like, search and seizures? They have more power than almost any other,
Well, the
government
search and
officer,
seizure, all
don't
that
they?
stuff should be across the board the same, right? You're guided
Gotcha.
constitutionally by that and through the Bill of Rights and through the Fourth Amendment primarily. And so, but it's just with the Forest Service, they cover just an extensive amount of land, and you're kind of with a you're kind of a liaison with a lot of other agencies because
Right.
you could have I mean, shit, you could have somebody dump a big 50-gallon garbage bag full of child porn on a Forest Service road, right? And now
Right.
you got to call the FBI, and you're gonna you're gonna work together on like a child porn investigation through the U.S. Forest Service. Seems kind of crazy, but that
Gotcha.
happens a lot. Another thing would be like drug interdiction because the cartels, and I did a lot of this when I was working, when I was still doing that stuff. We did a lot of like cartel drug interdiction throughout the western states, primarily, especially the Rocky Mountains, because they would use the
Right.
Rockies for cultivating like all of their stuff, whether it was marijuana or opium
Yeah,
or
for
like
grow off.
methamphetamine, you know. And so we would do a lot of hits like that, and then like come to find out, like the worst part about that stuff was it was the damn like carbofurin, which is illegal in the United States. It's a pesticide that they use, and that actually like a teaspoon of it will kill an African lion. It attacks the nervous system, and this stuff will get in the water supply. Like elk, the only way you could test for it is if you test their liver. You could harvest an elk that got into like a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of carbofurin. That stuff gets into their skeletal system if it didn't kill them, and then becomes a part of their composition of their body, right? And the next thing you know, you're not testing for that shit. You have to take the liver of the elk to be tested specifically for carbofurin, like at a university or something, or else you're feeding that entire elk to your family. And you had no idea that it had carbofurin in it. And now your family's eating meat that might have like tiny, tiny, tiny traces of carbofurin, which is a nerve agent, which can fuck up your nervous system. And so,
Well,
like when we were
I'm
doing that shit with the Forest Service, a lot of that was to try to mitigate more than the pot. Like, who gives a fuck? Most people like to, we think about like US attorneys, right? Or
right,
federal judges, because everything was federal with us. And so it was like they didn't give a shit about the weed, man. And like we found out real quick that that really wasn't the intention anyway, like the weed. It was
right,
it kind of moved away from that. Like the old school LEOs and old school AUSAs and judges and shit were all like, we're on drugs, marijuana, devil's grass, fucking leading to other terrible things. You know, forget about the fact that like 2 million people die internationally every single year from alcohol related deaths and like 0 people die from marijuana. But we'll
right.
just put that on the side for a
There's
second.
a there's an interesting read in Epstein files where they talk about people who use marijuana and hallucinogenics are a lot more stubborn to authority authority and like and this was like in 2012 I think when when they were talking about it. It was Epstein and another scientist talking about how essentially like the the culture problem with war on drugs is like those people aren't controlled as easily, which is kind of funny because I've been smoking copious amounts of marijuana for a while and it makes sense. So um yeah, I don't know. For the viewers who didn't know, I'm kind of a stoner. I don't drink
Right?
that much. I'll
For
drink
those of you that may
socially,
not know
but
that Joel's a stoner, Joel's a stoner.
yeah,
That's all right, man. I tell you what, when I got out the game, there's a couple things really quick. So first thing is yeah, I think the war on drugs had a lot to do with control because when you dabble in psychedelics and that stuff, there's a freeing, non-nationalist, more humanist approach that you take to life. And I think our leaders, and I've listened to Rogan talk about this on his podcast, and I 100% agree. I think if you're going to be the president or like a king or if I could dictate, even a dictator, whatever, like the best thing that could happen to the general population under that individual that is now in charge of your life and your outcomes is that they go spend a week in the woods on fucking mushrooms.
yeah,
Like
100%.
go do a hero, go do a hero trip, 5+ grams psilocybin out in the woods, rediscover yourself and who the fuck you are and what you think you represent, right? Come to terms with the stuff that scares you, confront it, pass it, or at the very least, learn that it's not what you thought it was. And then I'll tell you what, man. Like we were saying this before a few episodes ago. I was like, if you're in the special operations community and you go down and do a bunch of ayahuasca down in Peru, you think those guys are going to come back and be the hunter killers that they were before? Very unlikely. Very unlikely that like your whole life perception will change. And so it's like, yeah, of course, dude. Like they want people like ride for the brand, dude. They don't want you questioning the establishment. You know what I'm saying? That
Right,
shit's terrible for you. It'll lead to all these other things. You're gonna wreck your family. You're gonna fucking like some of the crazy old advertisements for marijuana was just it's just so wild, man. Also, it wasn't
well,
even called marijuana. It was like marijuana is a Hispanic term that they put on cannabis
yeah,
because when in the 80s they wanted people to be scared of it. And so like, let's make it sound foreign. Let's make it sound different than America. And so like, we'll call it marijuana. That's the kind of sounds Mexican. And so,
right,
and so they call it marijuana. And it's like, there's all these other names you could use, but they use marijuana with purpose just to make people
right.
more easily go against it because the name is a Hispanic sounding name. As ridiculous as that is. And for those out there, like when I said that, like I didn't dabble in this stuff because I got piss tested for 20 years. Like I've never slept so good as I do now, smoking a little bit of weed before bed. I mean, like I had
Okay.
huge sleeping problems, and they're like, "Oh, take is taking Ambien for the rest of your fucking life, like 2 pills a day that your liver digests and your kidneys have to deal with and all this stuff." Then it becomes like an addictive to a sense because you can't sleep without it, and sleep is important, versus just using a little bit of marijuana, which is not addictive at all, and be like, sleep just as good or better with that than taking those pills all the time. It's like it's just a
Right.
form of control because they can't regulate it the same way. And then people, your mind changes a little bit, just like with the psychedelic things. And they're like, hey, they want an us versus them mentality in this country. Make no, whether you're talking about
Right.
Republicans, Democrats, whether you're talking about Americans, Iranians, Americans, Vietnamese, Americans, fucking every single buddy else. Friend, remember American fries, like even allies that have something bad to say about us. You know what I mean? We can't
Right.
like there has to be an us versus them mentality, and psychedelics removes that shit, man. And they
Right.
it is absolutely a form of control, you know? And when you read in the history of that stuff and how dark it is and deep it is and like what was it, MK Ultra and that stuff and the
Yeah.
Tuskegee experiments and it's like, dude, the CIA has been injecting
Mm.
drugs into the inner city for fucking
Yeah.
decades and decades and decades to kick off the private military system and like all this other stuff and the war on drugs that we capitalize on. It's just like in 2000, we're going so far off the deal, but fuck it. Why not?
Yeah.
Like
Let's do
in
it.
2001, before we invaded Afghanistan after 9/11, do you know that Afghanistan was like the world's one of the very, very lowest producers of opium and heroin
Yeah.
through poppy in the entire world. Now, it's not like everybody's like the Taliban's this great fucking we're not sitting here advocating that shit, obviously. But it's like there are outcomes that you can investigate. And the United States, after GWOT kicked off an Operation Jawbreaker and went into Afghanistan and basically seized control of the entire state with the Northern Alliance, the very first thing the United States did was go to all those poppy fields with all those farmers, like happened in the northeastern section of Afghanistan, up there by Pakistan, up kind of the Hindu Kush, Tora Bora mountain range, and where it's real serious country up there. I mean, that's like a branch of the Himalayas that comes through there. A lot of people don't know. It's like fighting in the Rocky Mountains. There's aspen trees. You're at 10,000 plus feet elevation. It's wild. But they re-kicked up all the. Basically, Afghanistan went from being the one of the world's lowest producers of opium in 2001 to by 2002 being the number one producer of goddamn opium and poppy in the entire world. And for like 15 plus something years. And then on top, so the United States is using American soldiers to violently guard these opium fields, right? For distribution, cultivation. They're using DEA,
Well,
they're using soldiers, they're using US Marshals. They used a lot of like law enforcement kind of entities like Dynacor, for example, was a kind of like a Blackwater-ish um
right.
private security company, but they hired more cops because they would use them for like the cultivation stuff like that with the DEA, like in Afghanistan, to just basically like here's a saw, squad automatic weapon, here's some plate carriers, here's a shit ton of ammunition, and make sure these goddamn poppy fields don't get fucking burned up by the Taliban or Al Qaeda because they were burning up the poppy fields and stuff. It is like to stop the distribution internationally, which is kind of a crazy turn to like a twist in history, right? And so the United States is double
Well,
dipping in this shit. The United States decides because this is right during the opioid crisis, right? In the United States.
yeah.
And so they're double dipping. So we're making a shit ton of money through cultivation and distribution in Afghanistan. Make no mistake, weaponizing American forces and American law enforcement agencies and American private contractors to defend it. And then in the United States, we're incarcerating people at a record level in private prisons for using the very product that we're fucking protecting violently through death overseas in Afghanistan in two completely
And
different
and
parts of
didn't
the world.
and didn't we do the same thing with cocaine in the 60s and 70s, like in
Mhm.
American streets with the CIA flooding our streets with the cocaine, it's kinda yeah, that's why I
Yeah.
always those three-letter agencies, man, they're fucking and I don't hate everybody who's a part of those agencies, but they're fucking no good. ATF, IRS, CIA, they do nothing but fucking fuck with us behind our backs, and we're left, find out 20 years later in an undisclosed document from the government that, oh, that was our government putting cocaine in the streets. Like everybody fucking didn't know already, but that's the
Once again, the
shit.
conspiracy theorists batting 1,000 again, right?
Yep.
It's
Yep.
like, oh, it's so funny. It could take 20 years, but then comes out. It's the craziest thing. And in those law enforcement agencies, God, I was kind of an outlier in there, man. I had a hard time as a federal cop from my transition to like from like Ranger Battalion through working with the agency and then like being the federal cop thing. I just I didn't get along with a lot of them. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I just didn't. I remember going through FLETC, there was, like we had 25 people in our class. There was, like, 2 guys I identified with. They were both former Marines, um, really good dudes. We're, like, the 3 vets in the class, and I don't know. It's just I just I couldn't identify with I mean, because for them, it was, like, the best thing in their life, and every single scenario that we did in FLETC ended up in a shoot scenario, like, every single fucking scenario. I was like I remember talking to the instructors, I'm like, "You're training these cops like they're fucking soldiers going to war."
Right.
I was like, "Every single scenario we do here ends in somebody dying, basically, pretty much." I mean, there's a few, very, very limited, less than 5% of everything from all those scenarios of 6 months of training at FLETC where somebody didn't die at the end of the scenario. I mean, when it came to, like,
Right.
running actual simulated scenarios, you're always expecting to break leather pretty much just about every scenario. You're just waiting for the right time to do it so you don't get graded down for it. Like, "I don't know, you pulled your
Right.
gun a little fast on that one." "Oh, you should have pulled it a little faster on that one."
Right.
It's like, maybe I should just show up on scene with the fucking pistol in my hand. Maybe that's just a better way to do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that way we just know that we're like, are we a law enforcement agency or are we fucking are we going kicking doors overseas? Anyway,
Yeah.
that goes in the
Totally.
militarization of cops a little bit, but I don't know, man. So Robert Mueller,
Uh,
Robert Mueller, right? Dude. So he's kind of famous because he led what the special counsel investigation into Russian interference with the 2016 election that kind of led to nothing, head of the FBI.
right.
And so this dude dies, and I'll tell you what, I don't know if it was Charlie Kirk that said this or somebody else that says you can tell a lot about somebody just based on how they react when somebody dies.
Right.
You know, and we've seen a lot of this from Trump, man. Like I remember for years I was one of those fucking smucks that would just find a reason to excuse his bullshit. Like his draft dodging bullshit, his talking shit about veterans bullshit, his financial investing bullshit, all this bankruptcy bullshit, not paying his employees bullshit. When you kind of free yourself a little bit from your deity, you're kind of like separate and can critically examine some shit. It's fucking amazing how freeing that is. You know what I mean? Because not being tied to this dude anymore and his bullshit lies is fucking fantastic. But anyway, so Robert Mueller dies, and Trump tweets um, the following tweet, if I can find it here, verbatim, right? And then we'll go into a little bit of background on who Robert Mueller really was, whether you like him or not. You don't have to fucking like the guy. We're not sitting here being like, suck him off. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, we don't like fucking don't like him. I don't give a shit whether you like him or not like him. We're not here advocating for you to fucking feel any kind of way about goddamn anything. Come up with your own fucking conclusions. But this is what he said. Robert Mueller just died. Good. I'm glad he's dead. He can no longer hurt innocent people.
I mean, and yeah, like you said, you could find the character of somebody when they say when someone dies and they say something like that, you know? And regardless of I mean, just what politics has become, you know, if this was 20 years ago, they would have been like, if it was the opposing president, even if he investigated him, he would have said, I'm sorry that he died. My thoughts are with his family and his wife. You don't have to fucking write a speech and be insincere and like fake about it, but you'd say fucking sorry to say someone I'm glad he's dead, you know?
Yep.
And this is somebody who's served this country um way more than Trump ever wished he could. You know, he wasn't dodging drafts, he wasn't fucking, like, and you read his background because I don't think a lot of people know that he wasn't just a
Yeah,
um,
he actually
FBI
has.
agent.
Yeah, dude, the guy's seen the elephant, man, for sure. Dude's seen the elephant for sure. He was a Marine Corps PL, platoon leader. He led a rifle platoon in combat. Now, with the Marine Corps, and also he received a Bronze Star and a Purple Heart for valor. And so he drug a guy who was critically injured through fire, incoming fire, small arms fire and incoming. Basically, saved this dude's life. Like went out there into the kill zone, drugged this fucked up Marine who had just been, shot up and saved his life. Saved his goddamn life. Probably should have got more than the Bronze Star for it, frankly, but got the Bronze Star, Purple Heart, and other decorations as well. But yeah, he was a Marine Corps PL in Nam, and those guys saw some shit, some real,
Yeah,
real shit, dude. You talk to people from our war generation, we idolize the Vietnam era generation a lot because the more you investigate the Vietnam War, Christ, man. I mean, talk about just a dicked up war to have to fight in, dude. In the jungle with all the bugs and the snakes and the critters and the reptiles that'll kill you. And then the infections you'll get through stuff like that. The jungle rot, right? That you had in your feet, the goddamn Agent Orange shit you had to deal with. Like they outlawed multiple munition systems just because of the Vietnam War because it fucked up not just the general population obviously, but also the soldiers and the Marines big time. Like the
right.
Agent Orange stuff. What was the stuff that Israel just dropped in Lebanon? That's a war crime. That incendiary. Like, why am I not white
The white
phosphorus?
phosphorus. Yeah.
Yeah,
Speak.
and it's like this stuff came from Nam, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like they were like it was like mustard gas in after World War One. They're like, yeah, we that whole like puking out your lungs thing on the front line. They're like, I know we're
Right.
machine gunning motherfuckers who are caught in barbed wire and like all kinds of other horrible shit, but we're just going to agree not to use this stuff anymore because of how terrible it is. Even though machine gunning somebody in barbed wire seems like it would be just as terrible, right?
Right.
But it's like this stuff is so fucking terrible. We're going to outlaw it forever. And it's the same thing with white phosphorus. It was the same thing with Agent Orange, and that was because of fucking Vietnam. And those guys fought over 10 years enduring that shit, which came from our own fucking people, obviously, our
Yeah. Our
own
own
people.
own government.
And God knows how many hundreds of thousands of Vietnam vets died of cancer from Agent Orange or shit like that. We're seeing
I
that even with the
mean,
GWAT
I
generation now.
we have one of my friend's dad, bless his soul, he committed suicide. My friend did, but his dad had Agent Orange was all or suffered from Agent Orange stuff and was all fucked up from the Vietnam, and he ended his. I think his dad killed himself too, which is
Jesus
unfortunate. And
Christ.
that's another thing with that whole group of soldiers is that they didn't have the support. There's a lot of people when they came back who they didn't look at soldiers the same way as we do now. So they didn't have the support as a patriot and they didn't have the backing and like the help with the psychological side of that war, And that war, as far as war goes, that was some of the um like you said, that was a real war, And
Dude. And
now at least
yeah,
when someone it's yeah, it's a sad fact. And it's a sad fact that Trump wants to back to the point that anytime somebody is deemed one of Trump's enemies, this isn't death, and he's got to say like, "I'm glad he's dead." I mean, come fucking on. Like, have some. I guarantee you, Trump, if he one, he would never go to war, but if he was ever put in a scenario where he had to save somebody or run, like, I bet you could ask half of the people who voted for him that they would tell you that he would run. He wouldn't save anybody. He would. He's this. You throughout
yeah.
this.
There
He's
hasn't
all
been
for
any Trumps
himself
that have
throughout his
served in
whole
any
life.
wars in the last 100
Yeah.
years. You know what I mean? There's been the Trump name has been involved in off and on in politics a lot more than people understand. There's actually a pretty big history with the Trump family, even with his dad and like an uncle and some other stuff.
Right.
But it's like they're not serving in fucking wars, homie. Like Barron's 20 years old, homeboy's 6'5", like I said. Like,
Yeah.
fuck, I'd love to be 6'5" and 20 years old again, dude. Put a ruck on me, man.
For real.
I'll run up and down those mountains, dude. You give me a 20-year-old body at 6'5". But it's like, yeah, they're not served. But and it just talks about like it's the Joe Kent thing. That's what pisses me off.
Right,
It's like I've already I've breached past the point of no return with Trump and his bullshit and his lies and
right,
his shit talking against people that are I think are much more. And it's not like listen, it's like I said about Robert Mueller. Like you can agree or disagree with his career as an FBI dude and like what he did and everything else, but what you can't fucking question is the dude's courage and his commitment to whatever the fuck he believes in because he goddamn did it. Like he didn't order other people to do it. He fucking did it himself. And he did it, I'll tell you, man, like read some books about Marine rifle platoons in Vietnam and especially officers. I remember talking to my dad about this. And he was a Nam guy, Marine. And like officers, man, they're especially like in rifle platoons, their life expectancy was like less than a week. It was like less than a
right,
week. And what a lot of people don't realize is the people in Vietnam was only like 1 out of 20 deployed Vietnam veterans actually saw any combat at all,
right.
because the support structures in the military are huge. The infantry units and the special operations units make up a very, 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 very small percentage of the US military that actually see combat. And so when you're a PL in Vietnam in a goddamn Marine rifle platoon, you're seeing enough combat for about fucking 30 other motherfuckers that aren't seeing any combat. And you're seeing it a
Right.
lot. You're making up the difference. And so I guarantee that dude, man. And the fact that and that's the thing too, man. Like a lot of these guys, like you said, like your homeboy and his dad, and I've known more guys that have killed themselves than I knew guys that died in the war. Like
Right.
10 years of fighting in the war, um, a lot of shit ton of deployments. And it's like I know more guys that killed themselves after the fact that I knew in that entire time that died during wartime operations through the war. It's fucking crazy, man. I mean, the Vietnam era was like 55,000 dudes killed. And we're talking about this for a fucking reason because this is the human element, man. Like, we're going to war with Iran. They're talking about all these Marines on the island of Formuse, and fucking Lindsey Graham's out there talking, like, making comparisons to Iwo Jima. Like,
Didn't they just kick up the 82nd? Like, didn't they just now they're like, as far as I know,
mhm.
they're there and moving now, you know?
Yeah, the 82nd is probably already en route. I mean, who knows? But they spun up the 82nd.
I'm pretty sure they're like, yeah, they're en route. Yesterday, that's what I read,
Yeah.
that they're
And
en
remember
route.
what I
They're
said about
going.
the tiered elements, right? So the tiered elements are the elements you don't hear about until 5 years after it happens. You know what I'm saying? Like, if we invade the Strait of Bermudes or do what or not the Strait, the island, what is the island? Cargo cargo,
Car
yeah, that
the
island.
worth all the gas fields and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, where Iran has the and that's what because that's where they're talking about putting boots on the ground, and then where Lindsey Graham's making this retarded fuck this guy, man. This statement talking about Iwo Jima and about how brave the Marines were on Iwo Jima, and it was like, "You're do you understand the comparison that you're making?"
Yeah,
It's like, "Hey, homeboy
for
with no
real.
fucking kids who's a closet homosexual Republican in South Carolina, who might lose his seat in a runoff, fucking hopefully cross your fingers that that happens."
Yeah.
And the biggest warmonger I think that we've seen maybe in our lifetimes. I mean, like a Cheney, like thank God he's not in a real position. Could you imagine him if he was the fucking Department of War or like Department of
Ugh.
State or like in a real prominent position that guy? I'm
Well,
making Iwo Jima
and the
comparisons and just being like, yeah, we could lose 10,000 Marines, but I mean, it's the cause is worth it. The cause is totally worth it.
and
If
and
we would
all
have
this stuff.
lost that many in the last war. The cause was never worth it at any point in time for any things we did in the last fucking war outside of getting fucking what we were there to do, which was Osama bin Laden. I mean, like, outside of that, there was no cost that was worth fucking 10,000, 5,000 Marines or soldiers at all
Right.
in Iraq or Afghanistan.
Well,
Looking
and
back,
there's the yeah, it's just I don't fucking know, man. It's hard to wrap your head around. this war and the people who are supporting it. Trump said, "Is every other day Trump comes out and says the war's over. It's fake news if they're reporting everything else." But then we're sending our 82nd Airborne's en route, but the war's over. Like I don't get how
Well, let me play. I'm
people are
gonna
still
play a Pete
drinking the
Higgs.
Kool Aid.
Whoa, 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 whoa! I don't know what just happened. Sorry about that. I was gonna play a Pete Hegseth video and I just lost it. Um, before we do that, actually, let's play this. I want to play this video that Trump said about Joe Kent, or not? Yeah, because he talks about how he. This is goes along the lines of what he's the shit talking. He's talking about Robert Mueller, right? And so remember Joe Kent. As we said, this is why it pisses us. Joe Kent had 11 combat deployments, 6 Bronze Stars, like motherfucker, heavy hitter, tier 1, tier 2 units, 20 years in the military. Hardest trained in the United States military, basically has the offer outside of getting into fucking CAG, developmental group, or maybe like RRD or something like that. And like this dude, you know what Trump? He's a fucking. We used to call those people when we were kids trust fund babies.
Yeah.
He's a fucking trust fund baby. That's what Trump is. He didn't make his goddamn money. I'll tell you, you start off with a few $100 million and see what you can do with it.
Yeah, you just don't gotta
I bet
fuck
you might
up,
be able to make a little
That
bit of money if you're fucking halfway smart, right? And you have a name that is like a big time name in the city that you grew up in. But anyway, I'm going to play this video here.
Look, I'm not a fan of the guy. If you look at, and you never cover this, if you look at his truths or whatever he went on, if it's X or truth, if you look at his truths or his statements, he was all for everything. All of a sudden, he wasn't. He was a man that I met at Dover. He came and his wife was killed. He remarried fairly quickly. His wife was killed, and I felt badly for him. He ran for Congress, he lost. He ran for Congress again and he lost. I said, he's a guy, nice guy, seemed like a very nice guy. I bet him he was pretty heartbroken, pretty. But I said, it's a shame. He ran for Congress twice. Call him up, give him a job in the White House. Smart. They gave him a job in the White House, and this is what he does to me. Being a nice guy doesn't pay off too much. Think of it.
Dude, a few things there. First of all, nobody's fucking truth in anything, Trump. He's advertising his own bullshit there. Like, no, he
Yeah,
knows for a
I know.
fact that Hegseth in truth fucking anything. Nobody's truth in shit, first of all. So, number one, like, piss off with your little truth algorithm thing. Number two, he's like, it took 4 years for Pete Hegseth to remarry. 4 years after his wife was fucking killed
Not
in Syria
Hegseth,
fighting ISIS.
not Pete Hegseth. He got he was Pete Hegseth was, uh
Oh yeah, yeah.
what
I
Pete
mean,
Hegseth was cheating
Joe
on
Kent.
his wife, and having
Joe
another
Kent.
baby with, like, another woman or something. Joe
Yeah, yeah.
Kent
I'm not.
is a much
Yeah, I
m
misspoke.
morally, Joe Kent is a much better person than Pete Hegseth.
Which is exactly what we're talking about, right? Because Trump's
Yeah.
been married 3 fucking times. And it's not like and obviously you can look at the Epstein files. The guy is not a stand-up dude at all. At the very, very least, he's complicit in knowing about international sponsored child rape. At the very least, he knew about it and didn't report it.
Well,
Okay. At the very, very
and just
best,
real
he's an
quick,
FBI
one thing
informant. At the worst, he's a child rapist himself. Mhm.
I
Yeah, go
mean,
ahead.
Trump has one of his ex-wives buried on his property so he could get a tax write-off to call it for like a cemetery. And she has this tiny little fucking headstone that's overgrown in grass. That's the kind of fucking person Trump is.
Yeah. And like, so
You know.
there's a book about Pete Hegseth or Pete Heck. Why do I keep saying it? God damn it. Joe Kent's wife. And it's called Send Me. And I actually bought that book for my wife. Because it's just a real strong, independent, like woman's perspective on war and some of the other stuff. And obviously Joe Kent's in there as well. But I mean, dude, what else did he say in there? And so like he was kind of broken up. He was a little bit broken up. He was trying to downplay you could tell a little bit he was trying to downplay Joe Kent's feelings towards his wife dying. Do you know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like there was a couple times in there where he was the way he was questioning kind of like how broken up he was over it. And then he remarries quick. Yeah, 4 years later. 4 years later.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, I don't have any respect for this fucking like he's like, Trump's a fucking probably a goddamn pedophile child rapist himself. Been married over and over and over again, cheated on every fucking wife he ever had. Like lies all the goddamn time, gets caught lying all the fucking time. And it's like the MAGA people that are just dress with him, no matter what, in lockstep. The mental gymnastics you have to play for this dude, especially if you're a veteran yourself now,
Right.
to still stick behind this guy, man, after all the shit he talks about people that you know for a fact did put a hell of a lot more on the line than he ever has. Ever. Fucking ever. For anything. Like I doubt Trump's, other than yeah, it's like I don't know. It's just it's for me, it's a very difficult thing to try to wrap my head around with this
Well,
bill.
and one of the things too is like I think Trump is a genius in understanding his base and not being dedicated to his base, but wanting their votes, And this is one of the things we talked about, not on the podcast, but earlier. So there's a guy his name's Ike Perlmutter. He fought in the 6-Day War in 1967 when Israel did a false flag attack on dressed up um, as the Egyptian Air Force, and that's how that war was started. But anyways, Ike Perlmutter, back to him. He's this old Jewish dude that is one of the biggest donors to Trump's cabinet, and he is also one of the biggest funders to transgender research. And he was with Disney for a while. He gave anybody at Disney who wanted to transition, like he paid for their surgeries. And this is just how well he plays his base. Like he has some guy who is promoting transgender, is one of the biggest funders of transgender researchers, is also one of the biggest funders to his cabinet. And this is kind of a conspiracy theory thing. And the transgender thing doesn't bother me as much as it bothers some people. I think there's a nuance in how you talk about it with kids. Outside of that, if you're an adult, I could care less. I don't understand it. I don't get it, but that's not up to me. And but there's this thought that the Jews use transgender as a psyop to help divide these like other countries when they're trying to push their agenda on these other countries. And the Jewish were some of the first people to have to do transgender surgeries, like transition surgeries. And they have been in that field long before any other religion. So that's another like weird component to all this. But I think going back to, I think Trump is really good at understanding his base and weaponizing these things that don't really matter, like transgender stuff, to get votes. He
Yeah.
did it with the Maha movement. He did it with like all these things, and it was purely to get votes. He never cared about any of that shit. He was about putting money in his people's coffers, and that's it, in his coffers.
Yeah, it's all about yeah, it's 100% about division. There's like the micro level and macro level, right? On the macro level, you have like the all-encompassing big umbrella of like international relations, geopolitics, federal government, like the Leviathan, right? Over all-encompassing everything. That's the macro, like the War Department, like getting into war with Iran and having every single Republican and Democrat support Israel no matter what. And supporting the war no matter what. You have Hillary Clinton coming out there and condoning Trump, saying this is the best foreign policy I could have ever enacted, even if I would have been president. It's like that tells you right there that maybe you should fucking change, like think about what the hell you're doing a little bit when Hillary Clinton's coming out and saying that this is the best foreign policy I've basically ever seen.
Right.
And so the transgender thing, man, it was absolutely 100% meant to divide, because it's not even necessarily the kids. The kids cause the division through the parents and the community and society, through the educational institution, right? And so you get kids, and when you do these schools, bro, and you're a parent, and so for me, like I'm a parent, I know you're not a parent, and so it's like it becomes more divisional for me than it does for you, right? Because for you,
Right.
it's like, God, this is like, what the fuck? Like, who gives a shit? Which is pretty much how I feel. I'm a very live and let live. Like, you can marry a fucking giraffe in your house. Like, just don't tell me that I'm supposed to marry a giraffe. And don't tell me that I'm
Right.
supposed to feel some kind of way about you marrying a giraffe. Okay. That's
Right.
where like my commitment to your openness ends, is where you tell me how I'm supposed to fucking feel about something. All right. And so like when you have these kids and you get a school that has 50% rural kids from the country, right? That are probably waking up at 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the morning. They're feeding horses, they're mucking stalls, they're throwing hay, they're dealing with their 4-H animals and shit and getting them all fed and cleaned up and everything ready to go. So when they go to school, they're squared away. And they come back home and they do it again. And then you get kids from like the city, that might wake up 15 minutes before school starts, throw on some clothes and some pajamas and show up to school in fucking pajamas all day. Right. Versus some guy or gal who's been up for 2.5 hours dealing with stuff at the ranch or in their little piece of property. There's a disconnect there politically and psychologically and like socially between those family groups and kids. Okay. And so they're sitting there at home and you have a teacher or a principal or a school district or a school board or what have you dictating political policy through sexualization. And then they come home and these kids are talking about it at the dinner table to two completely different families. Like the family that's waking up at 4:30 in the morning to take care of livestock and get the swather ready to cut hay and like all that kind of stuff is going to feel a lot different about that material and those outcomes than the kid who's going to school in fucking pajamas all day. Do you know what I'm saying? Like the kid that's going
Well,
home to school in pajamas all day is probably showing up at home and the parents might be like, yeah, sure. Like whatever, think about however you want. And then the more conservative family is going to be like, you're not cutting your dick off. Like, I don't give a shit what your teacher
right.
tells you or what your principal is saying. You're 13 years old. You don't know shit about shit. You have no idea what the fuck life is all about. You're not taking pills that are going to destroy your fucking your your systems, and you're not cutting your dick off. Okay, you want to do that shit when you're 18? Have at it. Do it when you're fucking 18. Do whatever you want. Go marry a giraffe, like I said. But you're not doing that shit now, and
Well,
you're not smart enough to fucking
well,
understand what you're doing to yourself. And it creates massive division in like a small community, right? And so it's like you're arguing about that shit that really doesn't matter at all because it's not really that big of a deal and there's not really that many people doing it. And it's causing animosity enough to where people will get in fistfights over this shit, literally, right?
yeah.
We've seen it for
Well,
years.
and you're putting these parents in a position to rest on like what they think is right, and say you're a parent that's dealing with somebody who wants a transition and you see your kid, whether it was pushed on them through whatever society or whatever not, but you're seeing your kid who wants to kill himself and they're going through this big thing and you're trying to embrace that as a parent and you don't know. I mean, and this is coming, some of this comes from so I got divorced about 4 years ago and got thrown out into this dating world. And 36, 37-year-old man, unless I want to date a 25-year-old, I'm dating women with kids typically.
Yep.
And I have dated a couple women who were dealing with this exact thing. And there was one who was um she felt like she was doing the right thing and embracing her daughter, and she felt like her daughter she felt something was different than her daughter the whole time, and she goes, "It's weird, I'm trying to do what's right for my daughter." And then there was another one where she had a very dramatic divorce, and her son was transitioning, and she felt like it was just more or less an outlet, and not he wasn't really doing that. He was just looking for something to grasp onto because all this trauma went around him and he was looking for a pathway and he found it, and she didn't know how to handle it. She goes, I want to tell him he's wrong, but then I do, and there's this crazy amount of backlash, and I feel like the support isn't for me as a parent, it's for him as a child. And I don't know where, and it was interesting seeing the two different perspectives of one was embracing it and one was like, I don't know about this, but I don't know how to handle it. And that's the whole, there's so much nuance to that conversation. And it
Sure.
comes down to parents doing what they think is right, you know? And I'm not one to, I don't think I'm, if I could say one thing, I think as a society, this is my view on all that shit, is I wish we would love people for how they are. Skin color, weight, if you're a man and you're fucking feminine as shit, not getting made fun of because that's like these people who are like that, then they feel like I need something to identify. I'm not your typical man, you know, like, and then they get pushed into a corner and then, you know, and like if we would just embrace people for who they are and um I don't know, that sounds super altruistic and dumb, but I think a lot of this is based on like America, you need to fit in somewhere, and a lot of people are just trying to find a place to fit in, and
Yeah.
because
I don't think
because
that's as
of
yeah, I think that's a lot becoming more normalized, you know? It's kinda like the difference I said between, like, the Vietnam generation and the GWAT generation. Like, the Vietnam
right,
generation was hardcore motherfuckers, just like the World War II generation. They wouldn't be seeking outside help. There was like, Sean Ryan does a great job interviewing all these former SOG guys, Special Operations Group
yeah,
dudes, that served in Vietnam on, like, the SOG teams that had massive, massive casualty rates, and you know, there was this one guy, this old boy. God damn, man. I mean, he's got to be like in his early 70s, and he's calling himself a pussy because he's crying.
right,
Like he's in his early 70s talking on the Sean Ryan show about some just terrible shit that he did and saw in Vietnam. And he starts crying a little bit, and he's like, "You're a fucking pussy." You could tell he like under his breath, he's calling himself a fucking pussy under his breath for crying over
right,
these things. Because it was the same way with my dad. Like there was no very, very little outside emotions, very, very little displayed emotions. You know what I mean? Everything was really, really
right,
internal and kept and tight. And I think a lot of that is helping with this generation with like psychedelics. I think the Vietnam generation needed psychedelic
yeah,
treatment. Like, I mean, on a
yeah,
level, I mean, goddamn our society for what they did to those men. God
yeah,
damn our society for
100%,
what they did to those men. I mean, those guys would come back, become the most anti-war people they were, dabble in psychedelics, and they get thrown in a fucking cage the rest of their life. Used to be you
right,
got caught with mushrooms or something. It was the same thing as raping somebody or murdering somebody. I mean, they would go above and beyond if you had marijuana or psychedelics to put you in a cage, to set an example out of you for a long period of time. And it's like these poor Vietnam guys, man, they had so much trauma they had to deal with. And like they came home to a society that fucking despised them, you know, and it was just their representation. It wasn't them. It was the fact that they were representing their government, you know. And I'm seeing
yeah,
this a little bit with the Iran stuff now. It's like if you look on X, you got a lot of people that are like, listen, I don't, it's not that I support Iran or I don't support the troops. I don't support the fucking war. Like
right,
you're not going to box me into a corner and say that I have to support the troops and therefore I have to support the war and I have to support the decisions of our government, you know, because that's the box they want to put you in. Like support, if we lose 10,000 troops seizing that island, I mean, that's a huge number, but I mean, let's just say,
yeah,
you know, 1,000, whatever it is. And like, they're going to tell you that if you don't support the fucking troops and what they're doing, even if they lose 1,000, that means support the mission. That means support the red, white, and blue. That means support the government. That means support their decisions and their outcomes. And it's like all in one package. It starts with supporting the troops because it's the most heartstring you can pull, right? Like, how dare you
right,
say anything bad because you're not supporting the troops? We're seeing that with this war with Iran. We're getting boxed into that a lot. And the last time that we kind of saw that was in Vietnam, I think, because the
right,
American public was really behind Iraq and Afghanistan because of 9/11. It's kind of like Pearl
yeah,
Harbor, right? Like you're not going to have a problem selling that fucking war, which is a reason why I think it was like why 9/11 was kind of like let happen is the easiest way to sell a massive war, especially in Iraq, where Iraq didn't even get along with Al Qaeda. They were a non-secular state. They weren't even
right,
a religious state. They had nothing to like. So Osama bin Laden hated Saddam Hussein. They didn't have fucking friendly relations at all. Come to
yeah,
find out, they did not like the Iraqi Empire, like Al Qaeda, at all. They didn't have anything to do with those guys. And so, but it's like you sell the war on 9/11. And so this generation, like we don't have a 9/11 right now. It's been
right,
since 2001, right? It's been 25 years. And these kids that are fighting in this war now, they weren't fucking alive when 9/11 happened, or they were so young they don't remember it, you know? And so
Well,
now you have an entire generation of people, of kids, of younger, of like in this war being like, what the fuck are we doing again? Like, what you're talking about Iwo Jima, dude? It's like losing thousands and thousands and thousands of people in Vietnam for a war that there was like, wait a minute, there was no Pearl Harbor. And we just lost
yeah,
55,000 Americans in this war. That is a huge number, man. It's a huge
that's
goddamn number. Hopefully we don't end up with anything like that in this war. But it's
well,
like it's changed on the macro level. Like we as a people, I think we're more like it's kind of they talked about with the parents thing with the kids. You know, if you're a parent, dude, the worst like if you're a parent that really that is really involved and there's different levels of parenting out there. Like I've seen some dog shit parents that could give a shit about their kids, which is just horrible. Especially I saw that as a cop a lot. But the vast majority of people care a lot about their kids, a lot. The vast majority and their outcomes and like how they're going to feel about things. And it's like if your kid comes home, dude, and and it's a boy and he's like, I want to have, fucking I'm a girl and I want to have blue hair and I want to do all this other stuff. Like as a parent, as a father, and especially as a mother, you don't want to lose your relationship with that child. You know what I'm saying?
right.
And it's like you can almost think about like the old school, like the Catholic schoolgirl model, right? Like the more restrictive you are of the old of the Catholic schoolgirl, as
Yeah,
soon as she turns 18, she's gonna blow up like a nuclear bomb and
yeah,
just be wild and crazy out there because you've spent 18 years just fucking pushing her down and holding her back and being like, God, 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 guilt, 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 God, 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 guilt, guilt, guilt. And then she gets out there in the real world and she just goes fucking ape shit, has almost no self control,
right.
right? You worry about that as a parent, even with the transgender stuff and the other stuff. You're like, how do I? Because if I push this too hard, they're going to instinctively, being super immature, dumbass, don't know shit about shit kids, they're going to
Right.
instinctively push the other direction. It's going to be like if you're, like a rope pull, fucking, what is it called? Tug of war. The harder I
Uh-huh.
pull on my end, the harder they're going to pull. It's like a horse. Anybody that deals with horses out there, it's like if the horse stops and decides he's not going and you start pulling on that lead rope, what do you think that fucking horse is doing?
Yeah.
He's pulling back hard.
Yeah.
You got to redirect them, kind of turn them, put them, do a couple circles with them, redirect their
Right.
thoughts a little bit, and then they'll start moving again. But if you just sit there and tug on it, they're going to pull back and you're not going to get anywhere because it's a 1,200-pound fucking animal. It's the same thing with a kid. You're not going to get anywhere with a 13-year-old girl or boy that's going through puberty
Right.
at 13 years old and is like losing their fucking minds inside, especially the girls. And so on a parent, you got to navigate that somehow. And like, you got to realize the harder you pull on one end, man, the harder they're going to pull back on the other end. And as a society, we're kind of, I think, as years and years and years are going on in a good way, I think we're 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 coming to terms with like humanization. I think a little bit, and just like how we're identifying with the people in Iran a little bit, or the people in Gaza. There's a reason why Gaza or Palestinians are now polling a lot higher than Israelis or the Israeli government. Is
Right.
because people are like they're identifying with the humanity there. They're being like, "What would it do
Well,
if you were there, if you had kids and you were married and you were trying to live there? Like, how would you feel about it?" You know what I mean? Like, we're identifying with that more. But if the Palestinians would have done a 9/11 on us, we wouldn't have identified with them at all on that stuff.
well, and I also think too, like you have a generation of warfighters who fought in Iraq, including yourself, Aaron. Like people who were there during that time who kind of came back and are questioning why the fuck we were there. Like in the midst of it, you guys are just there doing your thing, and then you get back. And I think with podcasts and all these ways to get this information out, like it does change the populist view on it. And Vietnam was the first stupid war we really got into and got drugged into and lost a bunch of lives and money. And then there's the Iraq war, and now this. And I think there's a generation of these, let's say 55 to 30, who kind of lived through 9/11, saw all this stuff and from certain perspectives, and could look back on it with like real eyes and through the internet and podcasts and kind of have a conclusion that's not shoved down their throat by their government, you know?
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's
Plus yep. And another important thing to think about that too is when you're young, dude, and you're in the military, you don't give a fuck. Like, I'm
yeah,
sorry, you
you're
don't.
not.
You're
And
not.
and that's where, like, I don't ever want this to sound like I'm, like, dogging somebody who's been in the middle like, when you like, one of our first podcasts, you said, like, "Yeah, you guys are just ready to play ball." You know, you've been
Yep.
practicing fucking for a year, sometimes 2, 3 years before you ever seen combat, so you're just ready to go do what you're supposed to go fucking do. You just know the other team's got a different jersey on. You're not thinking about anything else besides that, you know? And,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
I've dealt with the outcomes, like, especially the stuff that I was directly involved with, Iraq and Afghanistan and some other places, a lot more as a grown up. And I say as a grown up, I mean
right,
as somebody who has the ability to look back and, like, understand the totality of circumstances and outcomes and, like, stuff you did individually, right or wrong. And that's, like, you always say, in war, you make decisions and it's covered godly because you're in war. And I'm like, yeah, maybe. I don't know about that. Um,
I
I look back at some of this stuff, dude, and it's like at the time, man, fuck, I can remember. I want to be careful about this because I don't want to point out like there was just a lot of shit that we did, man. We were involved in a lot of stuff that were people people died that didn't need to die. I'll just say it that
right.
way. Like
I'm
that's what war is a lot, unfortunately. But it's like when you're there, dude, like when we were doing that, I remember laughing about shit like that. Like I can look back at myself honestly with a lot of disappointment in a lot of the ways that I was as a young man and how I felt about stuff like that because I didn't feel the same about human life as I do now, you know?
right.
In those you put yourself in like the shoes of some parents and stuff in Iraq and Afghanistan and some of the what we did to some of the younger generation and it's it it takes you growing up a little bit and looking back and being and trying to come to terms and this is why so many guys like end up suck starting their pistols, you know?
Yeah.
Like you're involved with stuff that you can't rationalize in your head. And when you were a kid, you look back at it and you're like, how in the fuck did I embrace that so much? Like I would sit there with my buddies and laugh about death, about people that had been just completely disfigured, destroyed, just horribly killed, and be like, fuck them, basically, fuck them, you know? I mean,
Well,
that's how I felt about it. And it's like you look back and dude, it's hard
I
to realize that you're the same. I'm the same. Like I look at myself in this stupid screen right now, and it's like I'm the same person. Like I'm the same person as I was, but I
yeah,
feel
but
completely different.
when I think you're in it, you almost have to have that type of mentality because you don't know what's gonna happen, you know? It's like um, I don't know, like, I'm not gonna act like I have any sort of idea, but, like, I know when I was
You're more than
in a
welcome to have an
competitive
opinion, bro. You don't ever have to. Just so you
well,
know, if a
yeah,
veteran ever makes
well,
you feel some kind of way about having an opinion, then you're talking to the wrong dude. You're entitled to,
right.
regardless of whether you saw anything or not, man. You're entitled to feel exactly how the fuck you feel about whatever it is.
I know when I did, like, sports or anything that involved physical contact and violence, I would have to get myself in a mindset where, like, I hated the guy across from me, you know? Like, there was and, like, I mean, I wasn't always fucking, like, sportsman either. Like, I remember kicking a kid in the balls, like, I did some fucked up shit, you know? And it was
Yeah.
and laughed about it, and I also think, like, that's a mentality that, like, you kinda have to have, and you're kinda brainwashed not even brainwashed, but they push that kind of mentality on you, and I remember one of the reasons I didn't ever wanna do anything with the armed forces is my grandpa had a heart attack, and, he got a Bronze Star in World War II for taking a frag, like, covering somebody up when a grenade went off, and he got a bunch of shrapnel, and, I was like, he got out of that heart attack, and they gave him like 6 months to live after this heart attack. And once he got out of ICU and was able to talk and stuff again, I remember everyone left the house, and we went to go visit him because he went back home, and it was just me and him in the living room. And I asked him if he ever killed anybody in the war. And I was like this 13-year-old, 12, 13-year-old kind of naive, like didn't frame the question, um, kind of caught him by off guard. And he didn't really answer it. He kind of muttered because I could tell he didn't know what to say, but like the look in his fucking eyes, and this was like a man who I idolized, and the look in his eyes, and I was like, if he's like, I'm not cut out for that shit. Just in that moment, like I was like, I don't want to do it just because he didn't have to say anything, just the look he had on his face. And I was like, nope,
Yeah.
I'm not cut out for that shit. So
Yeah.
and that's the
And that's
sad fact with
and that's
war.
but that's good about you, man. Like, it's good that
But
you understood that about yourself. You know what I mean? Because it's like I used to see my dad's shark eyes. My dad had some pretty good shark eyes sometimes from his experiences and, in life between honestly, he was one of the LAPD's first, like, SOS dudes, special operation guys, SWAT guys before they called it SWAT, and he used to say that being and doing that shit was worse than Nam, but it's like I felt completely different. Like, I'm glad you knew that about yourself because for me, like, I felt like I wanted to emulate my dad a lot. You know what I mean? And
right,
I felt for me being a man was that. That's what being a man was. And he no make no fucking mistake, he was absolutely 150% a man when he was alive. Jesus Christ. He was a formidable human being to deal with. I used to see other grown-ups try to deal with this dude, my dad, and my brother Ryder out there, man. He could tell you some great, crazy stories about my old man, and so can I. We grew up, we were like about 10 years apart, but we had both had the exact same experiences growing up when it came to my dad, and especially dealing with other people. Oh my God. But like for me, it was like that was the reason. Like when 9/11 happened, I'm like, this is it. Like this is, what I'm saying? Like this is fucking what I'm called to do for sure. And that I didn't have that fear at all when it came to like turning out like my dad. And I look back at it now and I know how much trauma he had and how much stuff he was dealing with. Like, because I'm 45 now and I can look back at it in a different lens. And I know that, dude, he was hurting a lot inside, man. I mean, Christ, if anybody needed psychedelic treatments, it was Ron Bricker. I mean, he needed it. He needed something. He had some demons he was fighting, man. But I wasn't like you on that. Like I was totally the opposite. I was really, really, really gung ho. And
right,
if it turned me into a callous, stone cold, not don't give a shit about shit killer, like I was like, that's the outcome that I'm looking for. And I
right,
look back now and I'm like, I just want to be the happiest, most carefree, live and let live dude that there is now. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to have anything to do with that stone cold shit anymore at all. Like it's the very, very last kind of man that I want to be now. But it took
right,
a fucking long time and a lot of experiences to get to the point to where I understood the man that I thought I was supposed to be versus the man that I really, really wanted to be. Like the man that I thought I
right.
was supposed to be was wildly different than the man that I actually want to be. You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
and I think that's a weird thing with like just talking about like masculinity and stuff because like there's um like getting back into that dating world, and this is one of the things that I discovered that this is going to sound like kind of conceited. But like women were attracted to me because I was masculine, like, and it surprised me more, not like more liberal women felt good about me because I carried a gun, and you wouldn't think that, but it was because of like my mindset of where my head's at. Like when I have a concealed carry on me, I'm a less provocative person. Like I'm not going to provoke anybody. You know, like, I don't
Mhm.
wanna have to be in a position because I fucking popped off at my mouth to have to defend myself with my gun, you know? Like, that's there
Yeah.
if there's a fucking that's there if there's a mass shooter or there's something, you know, like, but, like, it's when I carry a gun, like, I'm a calmer person, and a lot of people think, "Oh, like, oh, you need to carry a gun because 'cause you're scared." I'm like, "No, man, like, it makes me a calmer person, makes me assess a room more when I walk into it," you know? Like, there's a bunch of things, and it's funny where, like, with the like, the push with all, like, the podcasts that are pushing all this masculinity stuff, like, if you need fucking Brandon Tate or one of the Tate brothers to tell you
Tatum.
how to be a fucking man, yeah, if you need one of those people, not the cop, the bald dude who was a fucking,
Oh,
um
shit. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
yeah, if
Real famous, guy. He's been investigated for various sexual crimes internationally in a few different states,
yeah,
is him and his brother. Shit.
and
Yep, I know what you're talking about. God damn it, I'm
they
gonna
got
remember in a
really
sec.
big during COVID and that, like, that man sphere, and if you need another man to tell you how to be a fucking man, you're not a man. Like, you either have the correct moral compass, and not to say you can't take advice or read stuff and, like, become that, but if you're listening to a dude talk about how macho badasses move in silence. They're not gonna tell you their shit. They're not gonna do their shit. They're gonna show up and be a badass. They're not gonna talk about themselves and all their accolades, you know?
Sure.
And like and that's where like the like masculine and toxic masculinity, you know, and like I think there is truth to that. And in me, like women like dating me because I was soft, but I also will fucking like, if you're my blood or you're my friend or my
I will
family, like,
crush you.
I will put yeah, I'll put somebody in the fucking grave, you know? Like,
Yeah, man.
I said this for a I said this for a long time. If one of my family members or friends gets killed in cold blood, I'll gladly sit in a jail cell for 20 fucking years to put a bullet in that person's head,
Yeah.
you know?
That's not
Like,
yeah.
no question.
I'm seeing a lot of stuff on, like, social media where there's a lot of women posting, like, because the world is in a weird place right now. Everybody's thinking zombie apocalypse, right? And you get
Right.
all these women being like, "Hey, girls, go out you and get you a zombie apocalypse dude, okay? Go out you and get you a
Right.
guy that when the power goes out is gonna fucking handle the situation. Go out and get you a guy that when the mobs are running the streets, he can handle the situation. Go out and get a guy that when you're starving and you don't have any fucking water is gonna get you food and water and put it on the table or medicine for your kids. Like there is a big push right now. There's because it's funny, we spent like half a decade, and I think a lot of that stuff from like still don't remember his name, and you might have said it right. That might just be that. But it's like the reason I think a lot of those guys became really famous is because of the pushback from the transgender movement. Like there was a huge push in media and by society
Well,
to kind of
they
like,
talk ab
in a way, like limit your
they
manhood in a way. And I think that
but
there was a
they
pushback
talk
from that.
They talk about that in the Epstein files, though. They talk about, like, Steve Bannon. So 4chains is, like, this chat post, and it's a lot of gamers use it, but they talk about, like, weaponizing that exactly and, like, using, all that stuff to, like, empower the white male, you know, because they felt like they were getting pushed on all this pushback, and it was, like, in a way, sort of a psyop, you know? They
That's how you get
opened
the
up
Nick
the
Fuentes
fourth.
too. Like Nick Fuentes getting
Yeah,
real popular because of that. And then like that there was that man, there was a because there was such this is how the pendulum swings, right? And it's about ready to swing really, really hard to the fucking left, kinda getting back on
I
topic
know.
because of the
Ugh.
midterms, and it's like, "Hey, dude, can I just get a politician that doesn't wanna cut my kid's dick off or send my kid to fucking war? Can I
Yeah.
vote for somebody that isn't gonna want one of those 2 things?" Because it's like I talk about, in this podcast, dude, we're not advocating for one side or the other. We're advocating for some independent thought and decision making here, like, kind of on a tribal level, not in a bad way, but in a good way. And it's like, dude, that's where the pendulum has swung real hard to Trump's side because of this last election. A lot of it was because of Biden and the fact that he was fucking had Alzheimer's and he was being handled as president, and interest rates and gas prices and economic woes. And it's like that pendulum's going to swing right back to the left, dude, in less than a year. in the midterms, and in 2 years for the presidential election. I mean, we could end up Trump could fuck this up so bad for the right that we end up electing somebody like AOC on the left for president, just because she's so far like so opposite of what Trump is. Like, I think our society, that pendulum is going to start swinging really, really hard back and forth. You know what I mean? And when we had the massive transgender, like kind of like when people were kind of done with the whole affirmative action thing and especially when you're struggling economically, as a family, it doesn't matter if you're white, black, Mexican, fucking Asian, you know what I'm saying? Like, struggling economically is struggling economically. You don't want to hear about people's fucking race when you're like looking at your kids and you can't put food on the table. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
but
you're voting
I
for
think all that
economics. You're not voting for transgender issues or goddamn anything else. And we have been voting for economics for multiple elections, and it just doesn't seem to fucking matter. Like, so for example, and we're going to get into the war stuff, but I'm just going to, I'm going to riff off this really quick. So currently, mortgage rates, and we talked about before about home buying, right? Like, the difference between like the boomer generation and the younger generations are wildly different right now, because the boomer generations have the retirement, they've got property probably paid off, like they've spent their entire life like in a really, really good, in a lot of ways, economic system where they're able to save and buy property and make investments. And it's like these generations now can't fucking do that shit. And you have mortgage rates today are sitting at 6.5%, 6.5% for interest rates. In 2024, under Biden, when we hated Joe Biden, it was at 6.5%. 6.5% is the exact same. It hasn't gotten any better. 2023, it was 6 to 7%. 6% up to 7% in 2023. In 2022, it was sitting at like 5.5%. And then it got up to 7% by the end of 2022. Okay. Those are mortgage interest rates. So we haven't fixed that problem at all under Trump, at all, because he's not focused in any kind of way, shape, or form on this economy, like keeping those prices down. Okay. What about gas? Fucking gas in 2024, right? When you would have thought the Democratic Party would have been doing their absolute best to try to win a presidential election, was the average, and the national average was $3.30 a gallon. $3.30 a gallon. And that was enough for people to put like the Joe Biden "I did that" stickers on the gas pumps, remember? And it was hilarious because everybody's like, yeah, fuck that motherfucker. Guess what? I mean, right now, the average price a gallon in 2026, a year plus into Trump's presidency, is $3.80 a gallon. $3.80 a gallon. It's goddamn 50 cents higher than it was in 2024 under Biden. You know?
and going up.
And going up, bro. Going up. Because we haven't even started, like, here's the thing, America. Like, you guys haven't started feeling shit from the war. You don't live in Europe, or you don't live in Asia. You're not feeling it right now in America the way that they're feeling it over there. They're feeling it way, way more intense over there than we are over here. But we're going to. Wait till the fertilizer stuff starts happening with the Strait of Bermuda. We don't produce any fertilizer. We may produce some oil and coal and stuff like that, enough to like sanction our own development and society. But it's like the fertilizer that all of our ranchers and farmers depend on all come from the Strait of Bermuda, dude. Like through that deal. Like, we don't have any fucking fertilizer. The prices for that stuff is going to skyrocket. We've only been doing this shit for 3 weeks. This war hasn't even been like a month yet, right? We're sitting like just under a month for this right now. And
it's just like Trump saying that the war is over and like he's in peace talks or ceasefire talks, and Iran has said numerous times that there's been no talks, and then they just came out, and this is coming out of their government, like further to be a ceasefire, they'd want us to lift all sanctions on Iran, shut down all US bases in the Gulf, give Iran $100 billion and $2 million for every ship that passes through the Strait of Hormuz. And like you were saying, that's totally nothing to do with our contingency for ceasefire. There's no communication going on.
It's totally different. Yeah, what Iran's demanding, and they know that they can demand this right now because of how weak the United States and Israel is with this. This is what so this is how far off they are. So Trump is demanding basically like the end of nuclear weapons, no nuclear weapons developments, what they had already agreed to multiple times. I mean, unlike Israel, they let international inspectors into Iran over and over and over and over again to look at their shit. Once again, Israel has fucking hundreds of nuclear weapons and they don't abide by a single goddamn international policy that they're supposed to abide by, nor do they let inspectors come inspect their shit. Okay. So that's number one. No development of nuclear technology again, which is what we've been dealing with perpetually for fucking decades and decades and decades, whatever. The next one is ballistic missiles. Okay. And it's like, dude, there's 35 countries out there in the world that have ballistic missiles. You think Iran's going to give up? They've been perpetually fucking attacked, basically. And yeah, have they done some attacking on their own through proxies and other stuff? Yeah. But have they killed millions and millions of people like Israel and the United States have over the last 20 plus years in that region? No, they fucking haven't. We have killed far, far, far. Us with Israel have killed on our killing is on an industrial scale. Like our killing, the killing that we do is like mass industrial killing. The killing that Iran does through their proxies is a lot more pinprick orientated, a lot more like you'd think old school terrorist hit and run style tactics. But the United States and Israel kills industrially. Like for every one person that Iran kills through themselves or their proxies, you could say that Israel and America probably kills 20 for every one that they kill. 100%.
Well,
it's fucking not even questionable.
And it turns out that, you know, Israel and the United States at different times has helped fund these proxies, which is funny, you know, like we've helped create some of these organizations at different times in the Middle East. And that's the funny part about it, you know, is like,
oh yeah, we did it with ISIS. We did it through the proxies in Iraq. We didn't understand when we first invaded Iraq in like 2003 and like the separation between the Sunnis and the Shia and like how the loyalties like with the Shia or like to Iran, you know, and the Sunni was separate. And so it's like there was a massive disconnect even in our own intelligence agencies on who to back and why. And the militias that we were backing for, you know, 15-ish years, 10 plus years in the Iraq war, come to find out like they were playing so many different sides, man. Like we were backing Shiite militias that were Iranian proxies through American tax dollars. And then these militias were using their power through the power of the Americas and our military. They were weaponizing our own military forces to go out and kill their own political like dissidents, their own political enemies. We were so clueless of the region. It's like going down to Compton and Watts or South Chicago and you live in fucking Taiwan, right? And so let's just say somehow Taiwan's a superpower. They show up in South Chicago and they're talking to the gangster disciples down there. And you don't think the gangster disciples are going to manipulate them into doing some killing for them?
Right. 100%.
Yeah, we did that shit. It happened in Afghanistan and in Iraq where you had all of these different tribal elements and these militias that were weaponizing the United States military, especially our tier 1 and tier 2 units, to go out there and do hunter-killer operations against their fucking political enemies. We weren't getting we were not pushing any kind of independent, democratic, Republican agenda in any kind of way, shape, or form for like a representative government. What we were doing is we were killing other militias and government enemies of Sunnis and Shias, depending on the year and depending on the election and depending on who was in power. Like we were weaponized by them for them. It's crazy.
And there's some stuff that was in the Epstein files actually, and this was Epstein talking with Tom Fitzger, and it's pretty much says that the U.S. gave a pass on ISIS to Palmyra, and then it notes the support for NURSA. That's a Al Qaeda affiliate, and U.S. agencies not acting with one voice. White House, Pentagon, State, and CIA and jihadist groups are preferring Donald Wild. And I was just saying that they prefer Donald Trump because of his thoughts on the Middle East. And then just for some of the, like how I'm talking about, we funded these different terrorist groups at different times. This is kind of like a quick synopsis of that region and what we've done. And it's the CIA, Mossad created ISIS and funded it in Syria. It's also known that Netanyahu funded Hamas for years. Hamas was also founded as a corporation in Tel Aviv in 1978 as an Israel entity. The CIA also helped create Al Qaeda and funded Osama bin Laden's Mahajim against Afghanistan during the invasion by the Soviet Union, and installed Barack Kamal as a general secretary of Afghanistan. The vast majority of militia operating as terrorists are Zionists disguised as Islamists. Israel has also carried out the air attack on the USS Liberty in 1967, disguised as an Egyptian fighter jet and a false flag to provoke the United States to support the Six-Day Israel War. During 1911, there were war games going on that are being conducted at the same day to throw off any interception by NORAD or law enforcement so that the real attacks would not be thwarted. This attack on the Twin Towers resulted in a 2-decade-long war. Our government has often carried out false flags to win justification for wars throughout history, and that's just a sin. And as far as that's kind of going to what you were saying, we let 9/11 happen. Like we may not, but we knew something was going to happen. And
Yep.
all just that whole line of shit I just read, these are all these terrorist organizations that we have the Muslims, that we've been fighting forever when we've helped create, or Israel has helped create every one of them to help fight other extremists. It's just mind fucking boggling.
Oh yeah. So if you're Israel and you believe in the Greater Israel Project, from the Nile to the Euphrates, which is basically like Iraq, Lebanon, southern Lebanon, like Syria, I think, parts of Egypt, other places. Do you think you're gonna get that shit? Do you think you're gonna get that land by just staying friendly with everybody, and they're gonna give it to you just because you're such a kind-hearted country in the Middle East? Or do you think you need to create
Yeah,
enemies and take that fucking land by force? Historically
right.
speaking, what happens? You take that shit by force, you create enemies, but you have to have enemies. You can't fucking fight somebody that's not a non-enemy, right? Especially if you have to sell that to the public somehow. In the United States, it's like 9/11, just like Pearl Harbor, produced that enemy that the United States government needed to fucking dramatically grow itself, dramatically
Yep.
grow itself in its power, in its scope, in its financial commitments, in its investments, and everything. Just like we were talking about with the opium fields, right, in Afghanistan. Like we were protecting cultivation and production, and we were making a fucking killing off of it. And then we were making a killing off of it by incarcerating our own people in the United States for using the very product that we were killing people for in Afghanistan, for trying to take away. And so it's like we have to produce enemies. You have to, especially if you have a society. We're not fucking Denmark or Sweden or Norway, right? Like we don't live in a peaceful realm in the United States. We kind of like to think that we do because we're always out destroying monsters and we're always looking at ourselves as like Superman, you know what I mean? Or like always on the side of good. And we're out there just perpetually destroying evil for hundreds of years now. Hundreds and hundreds of years now. We're just out there destroying evil. That's all we fucking do because we war all the time. Our country hasn't been at war for like 50 years of its existence, like total. And so, yeah, you have to produce enemies. You have to produce people that are terrible people. It's just like Lebanon right now. So if you're in Israel, and Israel is now like Lebanon's, like we focus a lot on Iran, rightfully so, right? And like the Strait of Hormuz and Karg Island and all that stuff, but like people aren't really paying attention to Lebanon. Lebanon is fucking bad. It's like Gaza right now, and it's kind of just
Right.
lost in the weeds. I mean, Lebanon is getting hit with white phosphorus, which is illegal as fuck. And it's you hear Netanyahu get on the like he was just on the fucking TV talking about how Iran's a terror state because they're hitting us with terror weapons and like they're the world's like terror weapons. It's called a missile, fuckface. It's the same thing you guys
Right.
are shooting into fucking Iran right now. It's called a missile. It's not a terror weapon. Like, this is, this is the language that you see that is ridiculous. Iran was shooting terror weapons into Israel.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you think it's like for the people in fucking South Lebanon when you're dropping white phosphorus over their fucking homes? What do you think? Is that a terror weapon? Seems like a terror weapon to me.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're displacing all these people, and they talk about immigration. Who was it? Oh shit, that great libertarian comedian, he was a great debater, Smith. Dang it,
Oh,
Dave Smith.
the
Dave Smith.
Dave Smith, the American-born Jew who's
Yep,
anti-Israel war.
great dude, great debater, and like, he was on there. He was on Piers Morgan with the guy from the PBD podcast, which I can't even stand. His name's Adam something, and it's like he was making an argument basically saying that, the United States and Israel has developed enemies with purpose throughout the Middle East, whether it's for ancient land claims for Israel, and somehow how the United States is tied up in that through Zionism, and then like the Greater Israel Project, and then the United States itself through the military industrial complex and the stuff that we have to do. And I mean, dude, when it comes to this missile thing, for example, that is part of, and Iran and Trump are so far off on this stuff. You got Pete Hegseth. Hold on, I'm going to play this Pete Hegseth video really quick, because this is hilarious to me, because this goes right along the lines of being like, yeah, the war's over. We're doing great. We're just doing this war now because we don't have anything better to do with our time and our money and our soldiers and our Marines. So we're just gonna keep it going a little bit, but the war is over. While they're shooting down F-35s, while nobody's getting through the Strait of Bermuda, while we have 50,000 Marines and then the 82nd Airborne, and then obviously the tiered elements that are heading there. We're 3 weeks into this bitch, and you got Pete Hegseth, who's, I mean, Jesus Christ, dude. The way that these people suck Trump off just is maddening to me. It's maddening to me, bro. Like, it's just non-stop suckage. They're just constantly on their knees sucking this dude off like he's literally Jesus Christ himself. It's unfucking believable to me how these people just lick on him.
Did you see Donald Trump throw him under the bus essentially for the Iran war, and then Pete Hegseth comes right back and starts kissing his ass,
Oh yeah.
And it was like
100%. Here's the audio clip real quick.
You're spot on. Never in history has a modern military. Iran had a modern military, a modern navy, a modern air force, modern air defenses, leadership, massive bunker. Never has a modern military been so rapidly and historically obliterated, defeated from day one with overwhelming firepower. The air campaign that we've conducted, that Israel's conducted alongside us, was one for the history books, truly. And it's because we have a president of the United States that when he sends his warfighters out to fight, he unties their hands to actually go out and close with and destroy the enemy as viciously as possible from moment one. And that's why we see ourselves as part of this negotiation as well. We negotiate with bombs. You have a choice as we loiter over the top of Tehran, as the president talked about your future. The president has made it clear that you will not have a nuclear weapon. The War Department agrees. Our job is to ensure that. And so we're keeping our hand on that throttle as long as hard as is necessary to ensure the interests of the United States of America are achieved on that battlefield. This is not Iraq and Afghanistan. This is not a president who's interested in vague end states. He's been very clear with us about what we need to accomplish, creating the conditions for them never to have a nuclear capability. And that's exactly what we're doing in historic fashion. Thank you, Mr. President.
We negotiate through bombs. Well, you know who else is negotiating through bombs? Fucking Iran right now, as they pound Tel Aviv to fucking oblivion. I mean, Israel's changed their tactics, where they're actually starting to like let out images now because they want to get, I think they want to try to get some sympathy here.
Yeah.
And so they're changing their tactics, and they're coming out basically saying, oh, it also seems like Netanyahu's alive. So whatever deal was with that, it like he came out, because Iran's been hitting some civilian targets. While they're hitting civilian targets, while Israel's hitting a shit ton of civilian targets in Gaza and Lebanon, and we've hit civilian targets by killing 200 schoolgirls and then probably thousands of civilians in Iran, right? This is what I'm talking about, man. Like these guys are so fucking full of shit and they're self-righteous bullshit. They're self-righteous crusader religious bullshit. I mean, it's like he comes out, Netanyahu comes out and talks about terror weapons, which is a missile, the same kind of shit that they're using. And then you have Pete Hegseth coming out saying we're negotiating with bombs, and that their outcomes have been very, very, very clear from the beginning, which is the nuclear program, which were supposedly destroyed through Operation Midnight Hammer months and months ago, which was also bullshit. Like the whole fucking thing is bullshit. What are we gonna go ahead?
Well, and this is going to create a huge fucking huge like there if this goes on and they keep bombing desalination plants and stuff like that in that whole region between Israel and Iran, like we're talking about 45 million people being displaced. Like the right creates this immigration problem and then the left embraces his immigrants, and like how like they kind of need both of those things to run when they're like running for presidency or like running for, or like one is creating a problem, the other one is fixing the problem, but they need that for like the democracy to like work, you know
Okay,
like it's like a game almost. So
I know where to
on
go. Are
this
you ready?
the 80-second, yeah, one sec, just for um so the 82nd is on orders to move out. That's coming from Fox News.
The 82nd, yeah.
They're yeah,
They're on standby to standby mode. So what they're doing right now is they're probably sitting in they're probably not allowed to leave. So if you're in the 82nd Airborne, you're fucking hanging out in your barracks area where your fucking AOs, squad AOs, platoon AOs, packed up, everything, all your D bags, everything's probably palletized. You got to palletize a bunch of shit like to put on 17s before you're gonna fly over. And so right now they're hanging out, man. Like they're fucking shooting the
right,
shit, cleaning weapons, hanging out, talking about how much killing they're gonna do, and like standing by to stand by with everything palletized. They're just waiting on the green light. I mean, that's pretty much what the
right,
difference. Like, so the Marines, like they're floating there. You know what I mean? They're not flying there; they're
right,
floating there, and so they have the amount of time it takes because they can get the 82nd Airborne and the tiered elements that are already like where they're talking about Ranger Battalion and these other tiered elements are going to be en route or already staged somewhere close by. And the 82nd Airborne, like it'll take the 82nd about like less than a day to get there when they go wheels
right,
up, when they're actually wheels up in the air. You know what I mean? And they might have to make a stop
right,
in like Germany or something to refuel and kind of like to kind of reset a little bit, but then they'll be right there pretty quick. And so if the Marines are like 2 days out from Carg Island or here's another thing, they got to get through the
right,
Strait of Bermuda, dude. So they're not just going to so the 82nd Airborne or like a tiered element can jump, like they can halo in, they can static line in, right, to the island. You can jump into it with a bird as long as that bird doesn't get shot out of the sky. So that's how
right,
you have why the 82nd Airborne is an airborne capable unit, just like every single tiered element is airborne capable. And so, but this fleet of Marines that are coming in from like these expeditionary units, unless you're part of MARSOC or what used to be Force Recon, MARSOC is Marine Special Operations Command, formerly Force Recon, and it's like those guys can jump in. Like those guys
right,
have the capabilities. They got wings. They could halo in. They could jump in, static line in. But these fucking naval ships, dude, they got to get through the Strait of Bermuda to get to the island. And I don't know. That's going to be an interesting scenario that we're going to have to watch play out, right? If they show up there in the next
right.
week, probably because they're scheduled to be there within like the next 5 days, which is interesting because Trump said he's going to give them like a 5-day break
Yeah,
before he's thinking about bombing them because they're not agreeing because we just talked about the terms, right? Like Trump's terms and what Pete Hegseth they're talking about in Israel are wildly different than what Iran is saying. There is no if you're taking both of these people at their word, and there's no reason not to take Iran at their word right now based on these outcomes in the Middle East and Israel and the Strait of Hormuz and like the UAE, Dubai, Bahrain, like all this other stuff that they're doing. And then the fact that they're displaying more advanced missile capabilities now. If it wasn't Israel that's doing some kind of false flag attack on like Diego Garcia, now they're saying that
Right.
Iran might have the capabilities to hit Europe, right? In some of these
Right.
places. But it's like if they have, and if that's the case, dude, like we're not anywhere, like we're in no position at all to lay out terms. We're in no position at
Right.
all to lay out terms. Like this is
Well, and
all
I
a
think
muse, bro. It's all a muse. Like they're getting out there and they're saying all this stuff. It's like everybody's got ballistic missiles, dude. Everybody has ballistic missiles. Like to say that one of the demands is the ballistic missile elimination of their ballistic missile program, that is a non-starter from day one. That was a non-starter from
right.
Iran before. That's the reason why we supposedly bombed them, right? Because they switched from nuclear weapons because of Midnight Operation Hammer to ballistic missiles. Because Operation Midnight Hammer didn't give Israel what it wanted, which was the surrender of the Iranian regime entirely.
Right.
And when that didn't work, they're switching to ballistic missiles as if somehow that's a reasonable compromise. There is no reasonable society or state out there that has a military that's funding a military for its own state defense and the defense of its borders that's going to be like, hey, we don't want us to have ballistic missiles. That's fine. I know that you guys have been attacking us over and over and over again, but we'll just go ahead and self-destroy our ballistic missile program. I wouldn't fucking do that. I wouldn't
Yeah.
agree to that.
100%.
You wouldn't agree to that.
Well,
You think the United States or Israel would? Israel doesn't even agree to have their nuclear weapons inspected. You think Israel would agree to eliminate their ballistic missile program? Fuck
right.
no. But
Well,
somehow,
and I think
because Iranians are the other, right? If they don't do it, they're fucking heathen, barbarians, pieces of shit, subhuman characters, right? Because they're not they're not eliminating their ballistic missile program that nobody else would eliminate.
well, and I think Trump just comes out and fucking he says that shit like, "Oh, we're doing a 5-day ceasefire or the war is over." He's saying that shit on Sunday so the stock market doesn't tank on fucking Monday. That's the only thing he's doing. He's just trying to control the stock market, and he's openly talked about, "I could say one thing up here and the stock market will go up." You know, when he wasn't this was before war. This was like when he was coming into term, you know, and that's his whole
Did you hear
gist
about the
is I'm gonna
trades that
say
were made?
oh yeah, more than ever before
Yep.
on Monday. It's
Just from
bullshit,
him
dude.
saying that, right? And he's dude, this like when it comes to like the stock market and the world economy, like he is absolutely manipulating it through verbiage and speeches. This is the second or third time he's manipulated the stock market and the price of oil just by saying that the war was over, basically. And then
Yep.
the Iranians within 24 hours say that the war is not over, that they're not negotiating terms, that they're fucking not willing to listen yet because every single time they've tried to negotiate with the United States or Israel in the last 5 years, we've either just like we do with Native American treaties, right? In the 19th century, we violated every single fucking treaty we did with the 100%. We didn't live up to a single goddamn
Well,
treaty we did with the Native Americans. And it's like we're bringing these Iranian negotiators and then we're killing them over and over and over again. And Iran's kind of gotten to the point where it's like, how many times do you have to have something happen to where you know, what is it? The definition of, what is it? The definition of stupidity is doing
insanity.
something, yeah, over and over again and not learning from it. You know, Iran's learned from it, bro. They've learned from it.
Well, and
They're
like
not
our
negotiating
nego
anymore.
our negotiators were Jared Kushner and Stephen Witkoff. Kushner's Jew and Witkoff is a Christian Zionist. And
He's
the
Jewish.
Brit yeah. And Britain essentially listed Steve those two as negotiators as like foreign agents. Like
Yep.
they're you know these other governments are like starting to list the people who we have negotiating as fucking spies essentially. And it's we need to get our fucking
And
head
Trump
out of the
even
ass.
said in this latest one, where he said we've basically won the war and we're doing it. I'm giving them 5 days to like unfuck themselves before I bomb. And he's talking about committing war crimes openly. Like Israel
Yeah.
and America have gotten past the point of worrying about war crimes at all. Israel obviously has for at least half a decade now, is completely like oblivious to what war crimes are in a civilian population. In the United States, it's like we're very, very complicit in that as well, obviously. But he's basically saying, like, he said Jared Kushner was he literally said who these guys were or who they're negotiating, who what we're talking about right now about them not being realistic, real negotiators, about that should be representing the American people and the American, because they're representing us as Americans, as taxpayers that are funding this shit. Theoretically, in a democratic republic, it's like that's who they're representing, is us, the citizenry. And it's like these guys, obviously, clearly, the way that they're manipulating the market, the way that they're lying about the outcomes of this war, the way that they lied to us. This is the only war that's ever taken place where at the very beginning we were completely underwater from day one, right? At no point in time has there been a majority support for this war, and we haven't even started losing a significant amount of American soldiers yet. There was no 9/11 to kick this thing off, which is another reason why we need to be worried about some false flag attacks and stuff. But yeah, go ahead, brother.
No, I got nothing. You're good. You're good.
Okay. Well, you want to call it? We're pretty good into this sucker.
Yeah, let's call it.
Let's call it, dude. Let's call it on that. We'll leave with I got a shit ton of information here written out, but it's like we can save it. There's plenty of time. So we'll pop out another one maybe at the end of the week. So love you, dude. Hope you have a good day at work today, man.
Yeah, you too, man. Take it easy. Love you, brother.